on my program, a lot of times I will point out, expose, etc., how conservatives, while they claim to love the Constitution, they hate the Constitution with a passion. They use the Constitution as toilet paper to wipe their collective bums. And in this case, it's no different because of the fact that people, again, two different ways, because these people are going to support, the deportation of people without due process. They argue that only citizens get due process when the Constitution specifically says otherwise. But they also don't even understand what powers a state has when it comes to, enforcement of laws. Because this 10th Amendment clearly states that if a power is given to the federal government, it's not a power that the states get. So if you give it to the feds, if it's given to the feds, the states don't get it. But they don't understand that. I used to say the 9th Amendment was the redheaded stepchild of the Bill of Rights, but the 10th one is making a case for them also not liking that one, because they'll argue the so-called states' rights term, even though there's no such thing as states' rights. People have rights, states have powers. They will argue states' rights, and where they're coming with states' rights is the 10th Amendment powers that states get. Now, of course, it's been misused and abused to justify owning people and other terrible, awful, horrible things. But one of the other things I've talked about on this show, when it comes to Trump and his administration and how horrible they are, is the fact that Donald Trump, before Joe Rogan said it, I was saying that Donald Trump is failing to measure twice before cutting. Now, a lot of this was done when he was actually cutting things from, not from the budget, but cutting expenditures, trying to stop spending on things that he didn't want to be spent on. But in this case, man, 31-year-old Danish national with no criminal record, who's been living in the U.S. legally for more than 10 years, was detained by ICE during a routine appointment to finalize his citizenship. So this guy is going through the steps to not just come here through the proper channels that they want you to go through, but they also are, he was also wanted to become a citizen. Casper Erickson, a green card holder who works as a welder in Sturgis, Mississippi, where he lives with his wife and 4 kids, was unexpectedly taken into custody on April 15th and later transferred to the LaSalle Detention Center in Louisiana. 31-year-old, according to his wife, Savannah Hobart Erickson, first moved to the States as an exchange student in 2009 and returned to Denmark. He returned to the U.S. legally in 2013 after he and his wife married and began the legal process of becoming an American citizen. In September 2024, according to the outlet, the Ericksons received word that his application was under review, and on March 7th, that an interview for his naturalization application was scheduled. ICE officials reportedly detained the 31 for failing to file a single document due in 2015 from around the same time the couple lost their first child in stillbirth. Amidst their grief, they forgot to file Form I-751, according to the Mississippi Free Press. More than a month later, the Danish national remains in a Louisiana detention center with dozens of other detainees unsure about his future. This is not moral. This is not ethical. This is BS. Now, the I-71, again, is a petition to remove conditions on residents. And it's basically just a form. You could look at it real quick. Just go over here and petition to remove conditions on residents, receipt, action block remarks, relocation sent, relocation received, information about you, the conditional resident, other names used, country of birth, all this other stuff. So apparently, while dealing with the loss of a child, because, Republicans claim to want to support and protect the children, but they don't give a crap about the children. They only care about embryos and fetuses. So he apparently failed to file that one document and did everything else right, and they're like, nope, let's detain him. We're going to put him in a detention facility, and will they deport him too? Who knows? But here's another thing. According to NBC News, U.S. citizen with real ID. Remember, we're all supposed to get real IDs? We're all supposed to get those in order to help us travel and stuff like that, because it proved that we are who we are. It's supposed to be a great thing that we can have. Well, this U.S. citizen had a real ID. He was handcuffed and held in an immigration raid before being released. U.S.-born citizen who was wrestled into the dirt, handcuffed, and detained in a vehicle as part of an immigration raid, had his real ID on him. It was dismissed by the ICE officers as fake, the man's cousin said Friday. The video of the arrest showed authorities grabbing him while at the job site in Foley, Alabama on Wednesday and bending his arms behind him. Someone off camera can be heard yelling, "He's a citizen." Garcia told Noticias Telemundo that authorities took his ID from his wallet and told him it was fake before handcuffing. Real ID is the identification U.S. citizens are required by law to have in order to travel through airports and enter federal buildings. It's considered a higher security form of identification, but they don't care as long as you are Hispanic looking. Garcia told Noticias Telemundo that they grabbed me real bad and the handcuffs were placed very hard on him. Garcia said he was released from the vehicle where he was held after he gave arresting officials his social security number, which showed he is a U.S. citizen. The arrest left Garcia, who was born in Florida, shaken, particularly because the officers also arrested and detained his brother, who is not in the country legally. She added that Garcia lived with his brother. Their parents are from Mexico. He was actually pretty sore when he got back. Yada, yada, yada. So, again, this is a citizen detained by ICE, and when he showed his, they wanted us to support the Papers, Please laws. They wanted us to be able to say, okay, well, if you are not here legally, if you're here legally, you should be able to show an identification. Even citizens, they wanted you to be able to show your papers. Well, this guy did. This guy showed his legal documentation, his real ID. That is a secure form of identification that he obtained, like you're supposed to. And yet they detained him. It's not the only person that our immigration officials have been dealing with incorrectly. There was the child citizen who, was dealing with brain cancer and getting procedures to help treat the brain cancer, and they deported the U.S. citizen because the parents were not. Because, again, they're nothing but bigots. Of course, South Africans, these South Afrikaners, who are afraid that they're going to die, supposedly, in South Africa because they're white, they're allowed to come in no problem. Because, we can all understand why that's the case. That being said, going back to the constitutional argument, now we've dealt with the due process argument. Now, will they provide the individuals here legally the ability to have a habeas corpus hearing? I mean, he's been there a month. The Supreme Court said that if you're being detained and potentially being deported, that you are supposed to be given enough time, a reasonable amount of time, to file a writ of habeas corpus. Of course, we also believe that before they announced that, like Richard Miller or whatever, Pee Wee German, as some might call him, when they started suggesting that Trump should use the clause in the Constitution that would allow him to suspend the writ of habeas corpus in times of invasion, because they all lie and say that this is an invasion. It's a lie. It's not an invasion. It doesn't qualify as an invasion. But they're going to try and twist and turn in every word possible to get the bigoted things that they want done. But again, back to the Constitution on the other issue, not just the side of getting due process. But according to a local news agency, Fox 8, 5 state agencies are entering into ICE partnerships under Operation GO. And in Louisiana, we spell GO, Geaux, because that's the way we spell it. Anyway, a week after Jeff Landry signed Executive Order Operation GO, which calls on Louisiana law enforcement agencies to partner with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, 5 state agencies have entered into those agreements. According to ICE, the Alcohol and Tobacco Control, Wildlife and Fisheries, National Guard, State Fire Marshal, and the State Police have all joined ICE's 287G program under the task force model. The program allows participating agencies to exercise limited immigration enforcement authority under ICE supervision during routine police work. Jeff Landry, the governor, who's like a mini Trump, he goes, "This is a big, great, beautiful executive order." Just trying to be a little mini Trump. He's not orange enough, but he still wants to be a little mini Trump, because I guess he knows that all of his conservative folks will be more than happy to hear such a thing. In a statement, Landry said the operation will focus only on the 91,000 undocumented immigrants in Louisiana with a criminal record. I don't believe you one iota, because they're not focusing on people just with criminal records. They're focusing on everybody who they can deport as much as possible. He says we should hold them responsible. We should remove them from the country if we can do that, or that's what Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel said. Neither Landry or Muriel clarified whether being in the state illegally is enough to trigger enforcement under Operation Go, or if an individual must have additional criminal offenses. On May 12th, a cell phone video captured law enforcement agents arriving at an apartment complex in Kenner. Other images show officers knocking on doors. Neighbor told Fox 8 the agents detained an immigrant family and their children who lived at the property. So, but we've talked about this particular thing before, about the fact how they're targeting people. And this is why I don't believe his numbers on the border, because Donald Trump is having all of his ICE people going around and actually going after people who are here already, so he can't be at the border. They can't do two things at once. But one of the things that they don't understand, the Constitution, is that, again, the power to control the border, the power to control immigration, naturalization, belongs to the federal government according to the Constitution. And because it belongs to the federal government under the 10th Amendment, it does not belong to the states. The states do not have any authority to implement any border policy or to enforce federal border laws. Only federal law enforcement can enforce federal border laws, or that's the way it should be at least. But these conservatives are hypocrites, because hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite. And they are more than willing to ignore the fact that they lack the power to do so. And I've been talking about this for a while too, because you have DeSantis down in Florida, and also Abbott in Texas, who sent people, gave them a bait and switch, said we're going to send you up here for jobs or something, and then they just send them like the Martha's Vineyard to just troll the libs or whatever. You want to own the libs by usurping authority that you do not have as a governor. Governors DeSantis and Abbott should have both been charged with human trafficking and also usurping an authority that they do not have under the Constitution. That's another reason why Abbott should not have been allowed to put out those floating barbed wire berms in the middle of the frickin' Rio Grande, because he doesn't have that authority to act on that. He doesn't have the authority to control the border. And him acting to control the border is him acting unconstitutionally, extra-constitutionally, if you will. But yet these people are going to make the argument that, we need to deal with these sanctuary cities. There's no such thing as a sanctuary city. I mean, people might call themselves sanctuary cities for the colloquial reason, but again, state and local officials don't have the authority to actually act on enforcement. So if you can't act on enforcement, you shouldn't be acting on enforcement, right? So what do you think? Agree, disagree with me? Do you believe that these states, including Louisiana, are acting reasonably and responsibly by helping out ICE to, detain people who clearly they don't know who to detain and who not to detain, because they've got people here legally, they've gotten citizens, etc.? Do you think that's within their purview or authority, or do you understand the Constitution and understand the fact that these states should not have any authority when it comes to this, because the Constitution denies it to them, as clearly and as is explicitly stated in the 10th Amendment? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. Of course, unless you're a Nazi or an ICE supporter, have a good day.